Hey there. What's good, YouTube? God, I haven't said that in forever. What's good, everybody? This is Tim, also known as Yoshi McLeod, and I'm here with a bit of a weird YouTube video. So, first things first, if you follow my channel, you might have noticed I started uploading videos again. I'm in the process of trying out a lot of different types of content, and one thing I actually wanted to try messing around with is, I guess, this kind of a vlog style thing. So what I'm doing is I'm just recording audio, recording my voice. I'm just going to kind of talk about some stuff for a little bit. And I'm really just going to overlay it with some gameplay footage that's been sitting on my hard drive for I don't know how long. But yeah, so this video, I guess this series is going to be called DM Thoughts. For context, since this is the first episode of this, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. In the past year, I'm technically, and I will always say technically when I say this, I guess technically a professional DM. By professional, I mean I am paid to DM Dungeons and Dragons. A local game store in my area, they pay me an actual wage, hourly, to both prep D&D sessions and run D&D sessions weekly. It's actually been a lot of fun. I already DM a ton, so for the past year, it's a little over a year. I think I started mid-August 2023, and I've been doing it essentially weekly since then. Had a lot of fun one-shots that I've been running. One of my other DMs, he's currently running a party through Descent into Avernus, and once they're done, I'm going to be running our main game in our store, but that's not what I'm really talking about here. I'm doing this video because legitimately this is on my mind because this just happened. Me and one of my D&D campaigns, one of my home games, not the game in the store, our game just finished today. We fought the final boss. It was a 4-hour, 3-phase final boss fight, which, note, everyone had a great time. It was three phases, lots of trying to figure out what to do with the boss, trying to damage it. I had some twists and turns in there, lots of cool attacks and stuff, and everyone had a good time. I also capped it off with a very heartfelt send-off to the campaign, and I guess because of this, I actually wanted to talk about this campaign. So this D&D campaign has been running since, I want to say, mid to late April 2022. When I look at my note section said that it was originally made April 1st of 2022. So that tells you, I know I don't actually need that long to come up with notes for stuff, but that's when that campaign was first, created. The group of friends that I actually ran this from, I ran this for, I met them playing the Digimon trading card game at our local game store. So it's basically, just to preface this, I actually want to explain all of this, and I know a couple of them do watch my videos. Hi guys, love you guys. So it started out, I was talking to one of our friends, and I think we were playing Digimon over webcam. We were playtesting, and while playtesting, it just came up in conversation, and I was like, hey, it would be really cool if we could run a D&D campaign. And I asked him if he would be interested in it, and he said sure. And at the time, he had never played before. I was like, hey, do you think our two other friends would want to join us? And the next week, I actually offered the two of them if they'd want to play, to which they both were actually very excited. We're like, yeah, we'll join. So at this point, my D&D party is 3 people. I'm like, damn, I want to get one more because I think 4 is the perfect number. And as I was talking to the 3 of them about it, 3 other friends from our circle kind of were just like, wait, you guys are going to play D&D? Is it okay if we join? Now, note, none of them approached so aggressively as to be like, hey, we're playing with you, or you can't exclude us. No, they all were like, hey, you're talking about this. Is it okay if I join? To which there were 3 people who I was cool with. Granted, honestly, because especially this is 2.5 years ago, I can honestly and openly say I was not as close with them at the time. But through playing D&D, through hanging out, through getting dinner together, we've all gotten much closer, genuinely. So that is how our D&D campaign started. I created a world map. This is not a joke. I had essentially no story at the beginning of this campaign. But that's also because I wanted to test the waters. I wanted to see what type of things they wanted to do. My thought process was, we'll come up with a story as we go, but right now, I want them to enjoy the world. I want them to explore. I have a couple side quests and little small plots and stuff that they can do. And the only thing I knew at the beginning of this campaign is I want them to fight dragons. And this sounds weird, but I've come to realize a lot of D&D campaigns do not fight dragons. And I realized this by thinking about it. And in most tabletop RPGs I've played, most D&D campaigns, and I guess I also lump Pathfinder games in with this, but if you don't want to say that, even then still, most games, you actually end up not fighting dragons. So I started crafting my plot around that. The initial idea was the players are going to have to fight 4 different dragons that are guarding something. The idea, I wanted them to fight the 5 chromatic dragons, not 4. I don't know why I said 4. I wanted them to fight the 5 chromatic dragons, and through that, somehow this would lead to the end game, right? So I had that idea, and I sat around brainstorming it. As my players went through the campaign, eventually I kind of breadcrumb trailed them to get them to the location for the first dragon. I dropped hints about some stuff with other dragons, and then I didn't even tell them what exactly was going on with the dragons. What eventually I came up with, and to which they all joked, holy shit, it's Groudon and Kyogre. I came up with the story that the world that my players were in was created by 2 primordial beings. I ended up naming them Zentara, it was Zenta and Oshala. Zenta being the beast of the earth, and Oshala being the beast of the seas. Somehow, the 2 beasts had a falling out where Oshala wanted to flood the world, and Zenta didn't like that. So Zenta and Oshala would fight roughly every 1,000 years. Bright side, Zenta, the benevolent of the 2, would win the fight every 1,000 years, but this would also cause all life that would use Zenta's body as a home, because Zenta would literally become the continents of the world, would be killed in the process, and kind of like a cycle would start over. As my players found that in a book in a special library. So as they found this out, they found out that there was a group, or better put, a person who was working with dragons with an attempt to wake up Zenta. So the party is like, well, we don't want all life to be destroyed. We need to stop them from waking up Zenta. Why the fuck are they doing this? Why are they trying to wake this beast up? Are they trying to wake it up and control it to rule the world? Who the fuck knows? They just knew that they did not want this to happen. What ended up happening is they were going around basically always a step behind the person who was releasing all the seals to wake up Zenta. And at the end of one of the events, at the end of one of the dungeons, they actually encountered her. And she just turned out to be like a really strong wizard who actually didn't give a fuck about them and just kind of ignored them. So like even when they tried to do stuff to her, she kind of just waved it off and just deflected it, didn't care. She basically told the players that they were idiots and didn't know what they were doing. Which the players later found out wasn't entirely inaccurate, but still were going to stop her. Because what they found out is Oshala was close to waking up. And if Oshala wakes up, Oshala was going to flood the world. So she was trying to wake up Zenta so Zenta could stop Oshala. And she's like, whatever, if lives are lost, it's fine, just so long as the world isn't ended. The players were like, well, we don't want lives to be lost, so we're going to find another way to defeat this thing. Which the party, while going through a bunch of other side quests, did actually find a way to stop Zenta. Or stop Oshala. They basically found out they had to go inside the body of Oshala and destroy the core of it. So, during this, the party traveled, they stopped all the seals. They actually stopped them at the last seal. And it was really, really funny because I ended up cutting a dungeon from this campaign. And the reason being is the party took a long time doing a bunch of side quests and other stuff while the bad guys that they knew about were going to undo the other seals. So I had to kind of come up with what was the consequence of this. And the consequence is, off camera, they dealt with one of the seals. And so the party caught them trying to undo the last seal. They caught them as they were starting the process though, not right after. So during this whole process, they actually had the final boss fight where instead of fighting one dragon, they fought 2 dragons and a sorceress. So that was fun, as my party fought a black and white dragon and a mage slinging spells at them the entire time. Which, it was actually a lot of fun. It was actually a really, really lot of fun. What ended up happening was the party from there used some of the allies they met and a bunch of other stuff, and they went into the body of Oshala. Once inside, they actually had to fight their way through all of the different things inside of it that was protecting it and get to the core of Oshala and destroy it. Which that's what today's session was. Today was the final boss fight. Now note, me talking about it, I'm very much going off the top of the head. I'm leaving details out. Mostly because if I really went into the nitty gritty of everything, God, I could be here for hours talking about this campaign. But it was actually a lot of fun. There was a lot of small events that happened, and honestly, I think I dropped a lot of small breadcrumbs that I ended up not doing anything with over the course of this campaign. And I don't know if my players remember many of them. I do, but obviously I wrote them and I planned for them. So, of course I would. But the reason why is, a lot of the times when I'm running homebrew games, I will drop breadcrumbs and then I will just leave them there. I don't actually do anything with them after the fact. Reason being is, I'm actually seeing if my players, 1, remember them, and 2, are interested in them. So, just not like giving a specific example, but there was one time where I'm trying not to say anything because some of these ideas are things I might do stuff with in the future. But I introduced an NPC that seemed menacing, kind of was a bad guy, acted like a real shitheel. And I wanted to see how my players reacted to this. Number 1, they did not like this NPC, which, surprise, the NPC was designed not to be liked. But on top of that, I stopped to see how interested they were in this NPC. Which, after about 2 sessions, I realized the answer to that was they weren't. My players, they saw him, they're like, wow, this guy fucking sucks, and then just kind of stopped caring about him. So, because of that, I decided, cool, this guy's not in my notes anymore. I'm not going to write anything else about this, because this could have been a fun side plot, could have been an interesting story, but it was never brought up after they first interacted with him. Versus the character who got brought up multiple times, like, hey, we need to go back and deal with this. Hey guys, we should probably go back and deal with this. Yo, we should totally go back and check out what was going on over here. So, because they always mentioned certain things, or they always very clearly had a note in the back of their mind that they were worried about this, I wrote for that. And that's kind of how roughly half of that campaign went. If my players mentioned stuff, or if I noticed things in conversations with my players, I would make mental notes, or sometimes even physical notes, of things that I would always come back to in terms of planning that campaign. If my players weren't interested in a certain plot thread or NPC thread, I didn't put emphasis on it, just because it wasn't worth it. I think I'm of the opinion as a DM, while yes, I write certain parts of the story for myself because I'm interested in them, I think there'll be a fun storytelling moments to do certain things. At the end of the day, I am writing for my players. I want my players to enjoy the campaign we play. I want my players to enjoy everything they're doing. I want them to be able to interact with NPCs and different characters that they like. This is how I build my campaign. Like, even in some of my bigger campaigns that I've ever run and made. So like, for example, I have another campaign that I'll probably end up making a video about sometime in the near future once we finish that one. I have another campaign where I start out by putting my players in a map and I just let them explore. And eventually, once they hit certain locations, then I revealed the plot to them. And God, there's been a lot going on with that. But it's also the same idea. If certain things don't seem to pique their interest, I don't make a big deal out of it. And that's just kind of how I am when it comes to DMing. I know that not everything I throw at my players is going to be interesting to them, so I don't get overly attached to ideas. I try to run my homebrew games very malleable, whereas I can pivot, I can adjust. If my players seem to really like certain aspects of the game, I will plan more around those. If there's certain characters that they like, I will do more with them. So, speaking of this game, God, 2.5 years, like legit, 2022, like we've been running it, like shit, dude. We had an NPC in our party. I introduced her to the party as someone a little bit extra. What had happened was, from our initial 6 players, 2 of them ended up having to drop from their campaign for reasons. Of these 2, one of which I'm still good friends with, the other one haven't talked to in maybe close to a year at this point. It is what it is. So, with that all happening, I made the decision to introduce I didn't make the decision. I threw an NPC at the party. The NPC was a young girl, so a party of like 20-somethings to maybe early 30-something characters. They end up meeting a young girl who is 16, but due to just like the way her genetics are, she's a 16-year-old who has the maturity of a 16-year-old, but looks like she's about 12. She was running away from home, and they found her stowed away on a ship that they were sailing on. She basically had a rough but privileged home life and didn't want to deal with it, didn't want to deal with the expectations or the forced marriage she was in. So she ran away from home. And so, I believe specifically she ended up having like a talk with the captain of the ship they were on. And then after that, the captain of the ship ended up asking the players to take her with them so that she could at least see the world for a little bit. The players initially, I'm not sure about this. This is me guessing. And if anyone sees this video, Aaron, I know you watch some of my videos and stuff. So if anyone sees this video and you're like, hey, well, no, we actually never intended to send her home, you can go ahead and correct me on that. But my initial impression was she was going to be with the characters for a little bit, and then they were going to be like, all right, we've taken you around with us, now let's take you home, and it's whatever after that. She ended up becoming the party's little cinnamon roll that they never let go of. At the time, since we had lost 2 players, I think our party composition was Bard, Paladin, Ranger, Wizard. It was those 4. And so what I had done at the time is the NPC that was added, she was a rogue cleric multi-class. And some of you might be like, oh, well, that's a hard multi-class to do because that requires really good stat rolls or you have a lot of things. I'm like, yeah, well, it was my NPC, so I kind of just, for the sake of making her functional, gave her a max dex and a max wisdom. And the entire idea behind her was, I think at the time we were like a level 6 party. She was a level below the party. No, she was between 1 to 2 levels lower than the party at all times. And she would multi-class more so into whatever the party needed, or it was based on initially how they treated and how they act and how they nurtured her. So like, for example, if they did more good stuff, reinforced good values into her, she took more levels than cleric. However, if the party did more like sneaky stuff, they were kind of more wrathful, angry, she multi-classed into a more damage-focused role. That's initially how I did her. Eventually, we actually added another player who was a rogue, so I actually dropped most of the roguish parts of her character and made her basically a full cleric. but that was more so because we had an actual rogue in the party, so we didn't need an NPC who was half rogue at that point. I didn't want to steal that player's thunder. I wanted them to feel special, not like, yeah, we have another rogue doing your stuff. And because they're controlled by the DM, who's a very veteran D&D player, you don't have to, they know exactly what the fuck they're doing. I don't want to step on people's toes like that if I can avoid it. This character became the party's, God, I swear, if I ever tried to do anything to this character, I think my friends would have ousted me from the fucking friend group. I don't actually mean that, but I sometimes get the vibe that if you've ever seen that meme where I think it's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme where she's like, I've only known this thing for 2 minutes, but if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself. That's how I felt from my party when it came to Arabelle, our NPC. Which I've recently learned is also the name of an NPC in fucking Curse of Strahd, which is funny because that wasn't on purpose. But I digress. It's really, really funny to look at. This character, like, she became very beloved by the party. The party cared about her a lot, to the point where, and this is hilarious, a lot of the times my party, like, they get into boss fights, but it's, at the time, I had them so strong, like, it was, like, really hard for bosses to threaten them, and it felt like they were very much pulling punches versus bosses sometimes, because they're like, hey, we don't know what's coming next, let's not drop everything on this boss. And it's a group of mercenaries appeared to basically Toph Beifong her. Where, if you've ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they tried to catch Toph and take her home, they tried to do that to her. And I've never seen a party of D&D players go, well, fuck you, so aggressively in my life. They literally did not spare any resources. They had just gotten out of a dungeon. They had just gotten out of a boss fight. And they were just like, I don't got much left. But fuck you, I got enough to beat your ass. And dropped everything to make sure their little cinnamon roll did not get captured. And I think it was actually comical. Because there were moments where they are like would roleplay interacting with her. And so I'm just cracking up because it was just a random NPC. I expected them to keep her with them for a little bit and then she could go. Like, other NPCs I introduced to the party did not go over as well as Arabelle did. Like, for example, they actually had an old man who was frozen in time. He got turned into a statue, and then he got unstatued by stuff they did, and he joined the party for a little bit, but honestly, I could tell they just weren't really feeling him. Like, they didn't dislike him. I named him Sir Ivan. If for anyone who cares, I based it off of Ivan from Power Rangers Dino Charge in terms of the name, because, you know, he was a guy from old medieval time who got pulled into the modern day due to Power Ranger shenanigans. But whatever. I digress. My friends, I don't think they cared for Ivan as much. Which I don't think they had a problem with him. But, so, at the first reasonable opportunity, I actually wrote Ivan out of the story. I think Ivan, he was like displaced from time, so like he had nowhere to go. But he decided to work with a troop of Boy Scouts and basically be a better troop leader than the one they had, who took them into ancestral land and almost got them all sacrificed to their god for trespassing. He basically is working to be a better Scoutmaster than that Scoutmaster and keep them from doing dumb stuff. But yeah, this campaign is not my longest campaign. I'm not going to go as far to say I've never had a campaign longer than this. I've definitely run D&D campaigns for 3+ years on multiple occasions. And this is because I very frequently tend to have D&D with friends. I play D&D with friends a lot, and playing D&D with friends, just so long as nothing happens to the friend group, you guys play for quite some time. But actually, I'm going to click on my notes real quick, because I actually want to look and see what my session count was in my notes. So this session today, I have it listed as session 63. So, because I'm very unreliable with numbering my sessions, I know that this is at the absolute minimum session 63 of this campaign. It might be more because I think in a couple spots I had session notes that ended up lasting multiple days and I just didn't make a new note thing and partially forgot like shit, but whatever. It's god damn. Session 63. We played for 2.5 years, for the most part every other week, like not completely, but it's like in a general sense about every other week. And yeah, like even as I like look through the notes here, like I'm not gonna sit here and say this is bittersweet. It's really not. For me, I'm actually very happy that we've been able to end this campaign. I'm very happy that today I got to send my players off with a really, really good ending. But it's also just, it's so weird to think about. Because just like, it was fun. It was fun dealing with my lovely group of friends that are a bunch of fucking idiots. And if you're watching this, you guys know I'd say this to your face, so don't even sit there and try to get mad at me for calling y'all fucking idiots. I love my friends. But this is by far the most scatterbrained D&D party I've ever ran for. And not in like a bad way, but like genuinely, they're so off topic, just doing random shit, saying random things, cracking jokes. But as annoying as it is at times, I still love it because that's the vibe that we had for this D&D group. Every D&D group has a different vibe. This was friends coming together and also playing through a story. My only thing that I ever really got mad about is as I sit there, be like, all right, I'm going to start getting into like a serious moment or seriously talk about shit. They crack jokes, which I think it's literally, they cannot turn it off. It's like, I don't know how many times, like, even during the final boss fight, I'm like doing like my evil villain voice, like I'm getting into character at the villains, basically telling them, but the villain basically like, how dare, don't stand against me, join me, become my clerics. And then they're just like, bitch, you thought. And I'm like, come on, guys, let me be menacing. Which, to be fair, I don't think I have... I have some D&D groups that would let me be menacing as a villain, but a lot of them would just crack jokes constantly. And it's like, it is what it is, right? Holy shit, I've been talking for 27 minutes. But yeah, this campaign was fun. I'm not melancholy about this, like, genuinely. Like, I know it might not seem that way just because of the way I'm talking about stuff. I'm just being very reminiscent about the entire campaign. God, this campaign was fun. I had a really good time running it. I had a lot of fun writing it. Sometimes it was a little rough because I didn't quite know what to do. But also, I've learned a long time ago that in terms of being a DM, one of my fucking best skills is my ability to improv. I'm very good at improving stuff. So when I would write my notes, I would make notes of the things I cared about happening. And then outside of that, I'd kind of just let my players kind of do stuff and I'd see where it led so long as I could get it to the bullet points that I needed to hit. In other words, I made sure I hit my marks. But yeah, that's the end of this campaign. Looking at my notes more so, I think my notes, we actually started in May, I think was when our first session actually was played. I think I just started writing this in April. But I think May is when we actually started playing. But God, May 2022 is fucking wild to think about. It's nice to be able to talk about a campaign's wrap-up. And honestly, I fully expect a couple of my players to see this and hear my fucking just diarrhea of the mouth about the campaign and be like, really? That's what you thought? That was never the case. And I'm like, that's the impression I got. It's how things go. Cool. You know what? I'm still talking. It's only 29 minutes. I'm willing to go 5 to 10 more minutes talking about stuff. I think the things that I really, really liked about this campaign was a couple things that I've always wanted to try and never really got a chance to. So on 2 separate occasions during this campaign, something happened, and so the next session, I handed one of my player characters a sheet and they became the boss fight. So I just kind of got to sit back and watch as they fought their party, which I thought was cool. My one friend Christian, God, I love this man. He's one of my closest friends in this world. But God fucking damn it, he kept picking up cursed weapons. He'd run to a cursed weapon and he would just grab it. And what would end up happening is, because he's a paladin and he had really good wisdom and he had his aura, so he got to add his charisma to his saves, he'd roll really high on wisdom saves. Constantly. And so he basically had a cursed sword that was like lusting for blood. And every time he used it, I made him roll a wisdom save and he'd pass. And the sword's like lusting for blood and covered in fire. And he's like, you're cute. Back in the bag you go. And that'd be his entire reaction to the sword. And then eventually, he found another cursed sword. It was an ice cursed sword. He passed the save when he picked it up. But because my friends are not bright, he went, ooh, ice sword, fire sword, I make them keys. And that's not a joke. That's what he said to me in the middle of the session. My eyes went wide. No, it was like time for us to end too. But like my eyes went wide as I'm like, okay, that's a wisdom save. And he rolled a 2. And I'm like, cool. As one of the other party members goes to talk to him, he attacks them. And so it's like, oh yeah, no, you guys are fighting this guy. And so it became a whole thing where he became the boss fight for the next day. Which I think he really enjoyed it. Everyone enjoyed it. I let him handle the entire fight himself. And he's just like, I remember him messaging me like, how hard am I supposed to go on them? And I'm like, go as hard as you want. I don't care. He's like, he's like, but I don't want to kill anyone. I'm like, no, don't kill anyone intentionally, but attack them. Go ahead. Go hard. Try to just run everybody over. Second time it happened, one of my friends in his story basically made his character have no memory. And so, with his character having no memory, he's like, yeah, I don't even know why I'm here or in this place. So, he gave me a lot of leeway, but I could tell he wanted me to do something really dumb with it. So, what I did was, he essentially was a sleeper agent. And I used the fact that he had split personalities to go with the whole sleeper agent thing. And he was originally hired to assassinate somebody. But because of events that happened, his brain got all confuzzled. And so he now, a different one of his split personalities became the dominant personality. And that's the personality they became friends with. I'll say quotes because one of the party members, all my party members were friends. But the player character didn't like the other player character. And he very much played this up. So, not even gonna lie, I think when when our character Corin turned evil because of the cursed swords and attacked character Fry, his first reaction was, wait, we're finally doing this? We're killing Fry? But I digress. Fry's character, essentially, his previous dominant personality took over, and I basically I gave him a character sheet with all his special abilities, let him have fun, let him do a lot of damage, and basically like fight and pick off everyone and have a lot of mobility options. But I must say, I swear, my boy Nick was planning this shit for weeks, because my man, he already kind of broke the fourth wall with his character a lot, like in game. And so he literally had queued up Rocky Horror Picture Show on his TV, and in between rounds was doing musical numbers for his character. Like, his character was like freezing time and doing musical numbers as he's fighting the party. And I'm like, this is fucking funny. I'm letting you do it. Everyone's like laughing hysterically, but as he's just like being ridiculous. But it was fun. I think everyone has a good time with that. is I actually really like the idea of a player character getting taken control of or something happening and letting them control their character. Because on one hand, like, this is a situation where very easily you can be like, yep, you're not just watching, you can't do anything, roll wisdom saves, you get control back. No, I prefer to like just let them play the bad guy. Because some people actually really like doing that. Granted, I have friends like my boy Steve who don't like that, but a lot of people really enjoy having that moment to be like, yes, I'm the villain now. Yeah, that was actually really fun to get to do that. And I don't regret it. This was a fun campaign to run. I tried a lot of things out. I tried some things that I honestly would probably never try again. I tried some different things that I've done in the past, but I think openly made too readily available to this party. My party got a lot of magic items, and I mean a fuck ton of magic items. And I regret that every day of playing through this campaign. I'd much prefer them get more. I'd much prefer, if I'm giving a lot of magic items, to give a lot of low power ones and have some key ones with special abilities and cool abilities that are interesting. But I digress. 2.5 years, dude. If you've listened this long, thank you for listening to me ramble about this. If you're one of my friends from my party, I love all you guys. I'm glad you guys sat there with me and my insane D&D campaign. As my friend Mark would always say, thank you two for playing my game. I don't know where that's from, but it's like some Mario thing where they say that. But yeah, I like DMing. I've had so much fun with it. I had so much fun with this campaign. It was a good time. And that same friend group, we're already talking about our next campaign. I actually already have a lot of it written up. I just need to make all like the base stuff for them so that they can make their characters and we can figure out when we start. But that'll come in due time. For now, though, I think I've rambled long enough. 37 minutes is quite some time. Thank you guys for sitting here listening to my not insane, but hopefully coherent ramblings. I don't know how coherent this is. I'm not editing this at all. This is just going to be, I clip the beginning and I clip the ending of it, and this is going to get some video game overlay. But I digress. Have a wonderful day. Stay good to each other. And if there's any D&D topic you want me to just ramble about for 20 plus minutes, let me know. I like talking about D&D. I get paid to run it now, so it's whatever. Deuces.